So I had the wonderful pleasure of working with Miss Julie Tristan today, and she is a local radio host on a couple channels here in St. Louis, 102.5 and 98.1. And she's just an absolute lovely lady, and we had a great time. And we got into some topics about, like how to get started with a gun and why this is a challenge for a lot of people, especially women, to get into the gun world. And it makes sense. Primally, women were made to give life, not take life. So it is pretty difficult to make that switch sometimes to actually pick up a gun, to use the gun without visualizing a person at the other end of the barrel, especially if you consider movies and the news and pretty much everything that you see that involves a gun is a negative thing. People aren't going to the range to recreationally shoot when you watch it on TV. You're not seeing competition shooters and things like that unless you're actually seeking out that information. Pretty much new shooters come in with the understanding that guns are only used to shoot other people. So imagine how nerve-wracking it can be to pick up a tool for the first time with that thought in your head, especially for women, because that concept of even self-protection is difficult sometimes. So that's part of it. The other part is just simply that our brains do not like loud noises, and we know very well that guns make loud noises. There's this concept of recoil or kickback, that energy that you're experiencing from the gun when it goes bang, the slide coming back, or just the opposite energy from the bullet traveling down the barrel. You're feeling the equal and opposite response of that back at your hand. So oftentimes called kick, we call it recoil. So understandable why you would be anxious about that at the very least. So when you're getting ready to shoot on the range, you pick up the gun for the first time, this sense of, you get some jitters, you get a little adrenaline. That's all very normal. Adrenaline does some pretty interesting things to the body. You get shaky, you get sweaty, your palms start sweating a little bit. This is all subjective. Different people experience different things. I've seen many people actually tear up on the range, and usually they don't quite understand why they're quote-unquote crying. In most cases, it's not usually an emotional response, at least not like you're sad or you're, even happy. It's not because of one of the typical emotions. I think it's because, and this is my opinion, I'm thinking, danger, that your body wants you so badly to leave the environment because it thinks you're in grave danger. It's hearing explosions. It doesn't like loud noises. It is telling you with all of the primal being inside of you that something is wrong and you're in danger, so you need to leave. And when we make the decision to go against our natural desire to avoid danger, I think that causes our get all mixed up there and tears come out. So I'm not really sure why the tears happen, but they're totally normal. But there's one thing that I have found that's very interesting to me when someone's learning the skill is that even if someone who's been coming to me for a while, or they've used a gun before and they're good with loading and all that stuff, I know how to load a magazine, I know how to load the gun, I know how to rack a slide, I know how to do all that. But maybe they haven't done it in a couple years, or they just don't do it very often. So when they come to the range, I'm standing next to them, and maybe it even just comes from peer pressure. You're amongst your peers, or you have somebody watching you. It causes a little chaos up here, a little nervousness. And when you're nervous, it's difficult to use the front part of your brain. When your body's releasing cortisol and adrenaline and things like that because you're under stress, it is difficult for you to focus and use the thinking part of your brain. You kind of go to this animal part of your brain where you just do simple things, and it's difficult to think straight. So much so that people will load their magazines backwards. And they look at me like, why on earth did I do that? I have done this so many times. Why did I load the magazine backwards? Or why did I try to put the magazine in backwards? Why did I forget to rack the slide? Why did I forget to use the safety? I've done this before. Why all of a sudden did I just forget? I think it's because we get nervous about whatever the task is. Maybe we're going into a new concept that brings you out of your comfort zone a little bit, and because we're thinking about this new thing, we're a little nervous about it, we're outside of our comfort zone, it's difficult to process some of those other things. And unless you've been training for a really long time, where those other concepts are committed to your subconscious, then it's difficult to bring them up unless you're actively thinking about it. And if you're actively thinking about this new concept you just learned and you're nervous about it, it's difficult to use your brain in that thinking way to do the things that you know how to do already. So the brain is such a fascinating thing, and everybody handles their nerves differently. The anxiety, the fear, we all come from different backgrounds and different places and have different histories and traumas and life experiences. If you grew up in a home where guns are taboo, if you will, or not a good thing in your household, then you're going to be an adult with a fear of guns, because that was your life growing up. But if you've been around guns your whole life, that might be different for you. Or what if you've been, and this is just general statements, everybody's different, like you could have been told your whole life that guns are bad, and maybe you're that rebel that's like, my parents don't know anything, and I know guns are awesome, and I want to go shoot guns, and I don't care what they say, and you don't have the apprehension. Everybody's different. So my point is our brains do crazy things when we're under stress. It is difficult for us to use the thinking part of our brain when we're under stress, which is a big reason why we talk about how important training is, because training sets you up for committing concepts to your subconscious to where you don't have to think about them. And if you were ever in an encounter where you are trying to figure out how to save your life, I don't want you to be thinking about how to rack the slide on a gun, or hopefully you wouldn't even need to rack the slide on a gun because the gun would be loaded and ready to go. But I don't want you to have to think about how to get your grip, or get your gun out of its holster or anything like that. So training can commit those things to subconscious, just like when you're driving. Your blinker, everything happens naturally. It's a reason why I can talk to you while I'm driving. I drive this same route every single day, so I'm basically running on automation. Or not automation, you know what I'm talking about. Memory. I don't have to think about anything. It just happens. And I'm conscious of what's going on, so I can see when things are wrong. If someone slammed on their brakes ahead of me, I can have the reaction to stop because I'm still paying attention. But since it's committed to my subconscious where my blinker is and where my gas pedal is and my brake pedal, I don't have to actively think about using them in the moment. And I can immediately go and use them if I had to. If the person ahead of me slammed on their brakes right now, even though I'm talking to you, I would immediately slam on my brakes and stop the car without having to think about it. It's just going to happen. And that's the way that I use my gun. When I'm on the range and I'm going to draw my gun and do a drill, I'm not thinking that, I need to lift my shirt, I need to get a good grip, I need to marry my hands, I need to drive the gun straight forward. I don't have to think about those things because I've done it so many times and it's committed to my subconscious. But when you're first learning the holster draw, you're getting a good grip. That's position 1. You're dropping your elbow. That's position 2. You're clapping your hands. That's position 3. You're driving the gun out. That's position 4. You have to 1, 2, 3, 4 step through the process for each thing. So that training, that's really important when it comes to committing things to your subconscious and being confident in your skills.